Quote from a writing by the daughter of Singapore's famous former Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. He was the man who made Singapore into a model city and a growth wonder. The name of this lady is Lee Wei Ling, and she is the director of the National Neuroscience Institute, Singapore. And this is an extract from her blog. She says, "Slump time has arrived with a bang. While I worry about the poorer Singaporeans who will be hit hard, perhaps this recession has come at an opportune time for many of us. It will give us an incentive to reconsider our priorities in life. As I view the crass materialism around me, I am reminded of what my mother once told me. She said, suffering and deprivation is good for the soul. If one is blinded by materialism, there will be no end to wanting and hankering. After the Ferrari, what next? An Aston Martin? After the Hermes Birkin handbag, what can one upgrade to? Neither an Aston Martin nor an Hermes Birkin can make us truly happy or contented. They are like dust, a fog obscuring the true meaning of life, and can be blown away in the twinkling of an eye. When the end approaches and we look back on our lives, will we regret that the latest mobile phone or luxury car that we could not acquire? Or would we prefer to die at peace with ourselves, knowing that we will have lived our lives filled with love, friendship and goodwill, that we have helped some of our fellow voyagers along the way, and that we have tried our best to leave this world in a slightly better condition than we have found it? We all know the correct choice, don't we? And that correct choice is within our power to make. Ladies and gentlemen, it took a recession for the daughter of the former Prime Minister of Singapore to understand the basics of life. However, her mother knew it instinctively. Do you know why? Because her roots were in ancient tradition. Her mother was a Buddhist, and the Buddhist tradition goes back a long time. Now, this is the country that gave the Buddha, whose message of ahimsa went from country to country, all part of the world. And one propagator of that message of ahimsa was Mahatma Gandhi, whose birthday, 144th birthday, we celebrated just 4 days ago. He says, God is truth. The way to truth lies through ahimsa. Now, let us not forget that Gandhi's philosophy made a deep impact on Nelson Mandela, who helped South Africa emerge into freedom without a bloodbath. It was Gandhi's philosophy again that influenced Martin Luther King, who helped to end segregation in America, and also civil voting rights. And it is because of that Obama is able to be president of America. So the adherence of Gandhiji has had a worldwide impact. And that started from this country, Buddha to Gandhi to South Africa to United States. So let us not think we are powerless. Let us not think we cannot lead. Now, Gandhi, we all think of a religious man. Actually, he was a very spiritual man. And he connected with divinity everywhere in the universe. He says, the 1931 broadcast he made to the world, there is an indefinable, mysterious power that pervades everything. I feel it, though I cannot see it. Now, I want to show a few slides about commenting on that mysterious power that Gandhi referred to, and how, as a result of that mysterious power, we have a cosmic connection. You would not believe it, but we do have a cosmic connection. And to understand that, I have to quickly go through the next slides. And be ready for a change of gear. Next slide, please. This is a picture of the sky, night sky, taken with a telescope. Focus on this point. It looks like any other point with stars all over the place. This is a picture taken just a few days later. Something terrific has happened in that point. And now this is a point very, very far from the Earth. Something like 50 light years or so. Light takes 50 years to come from there. I don't remember how much. And this is a very small portion of the sky, but still in terms of miles, this is very big. something has exploded and that explosion is growing, the fireball is growing. This is a picture of the same thing taken 7 years later. There is a ring-like gas cloud. Keep this in mind and take a look at the next slide. This is a gas cloud in the sky, and this is a picture taken with a very modern telescope. It is known as the Crab Nebula. But the interesting thing about the Crab Nebula is right in the center of this, in the year 1024 AD, that means almost more than 1,000 years ago, an event took place, and that event led to such a bright light that people in China could see a star during daylight for 20 days. During daylight you don't see any star. Sky is too bright for that. But they could see a star for 20 days in the sky. They have recorded its position and all that by reference to the constellation very accurately. They called it the guest star. Star that was not there came as a guest for 20 days. Then it disappeared. So modern astronomers looked and then they found there was a cloud. This is the remnant. And they could track this to that flash by other scientific evidence, but I won't go into it. But why am I showing what a star's explosion? What has that got to do with you and me? What has that got to do with economics? What has that got to do with so many things, morality and all that? It comes to cosmic connection. Next, from astronomy, next slide please. From astronomy, I go to chemistry. In chemistry, they teach you the periodic table. And the periodic table lists all the elements from hydrogen, which is the lightest, to uranium, which is the heaviest. These are the elements that are found on Earth. All these are what are called transuranic beyond, because they come beyond uranium. They are all made by humans and they disappear. They don't last very long. Anyway, the point is, where did these elements come from? We have iron in the body. We have hydrogen in the body, we have carbon in the body. Where did they all come from? The answer is, the first elements were all cooked in the stars. I won't go into that. And they cooked elements only up to iron. If there is iron in our blood, that came from stars. What about this? These things were born by very elaborate processes that took place when star exploded. Remember I showed you, the energy associated with this, by the way, about 2 or 3, these are called supernova explosions. On the average, there are 2 or 3 of these things that take place. And the kind of energy that is liberated in this supernova explosion is incredible. For example, the density of the star just before it explodes is something like 100 billion kilos, 1 cubic centimeter of that material, which is compressed, neutron star, is not 1 ton. Normally, uranium, which is the most dense element on Earth, 19 grams per cubic centimeter, 20 grams, let's say. This is 100 billion kilos. Can you think of matter that heavy? But that is what that star is, crushed by massive gravity forces, tremendous force. And then it explodes. And the energy that is released in the 2 seconds of that explosion is equal to the energy which our sun will radiate in all its lifetime of about 10 to 12 billion years. In 12 billion years, the total amount of energy which our sun is going to radiate is liberated in those 2 seconds. And the temperature of that thing that is being crushed is something like 10,000 times hotter than the temperature of the sun. So some phenomenal thing takes place. And as a result of all that, divine processes, all sorts of elements are made. In particular, you get gold, silver, platinum, uranium. And all the women here who wear golden jewelries must be thankful to God that He waited till there was gold available in the cosmos and then made the sun and the planets. Because otherwise, what would you do for your golden jewelry? Next slide, please. This is the birth of the solar system. Our solar system is about 6 billion years ago. It formed when a dust cloud that was left behind by a star that exploded began to come together and then spin, and out of that was born our planets. Now, I mention this to show that there is a very great divine plan, that we were brought very late into the cosmos. But though we came late, our roots go back all the way to the beginning of the cosmos, because the iron in us came from a star that lived billions and billions of years ago. So we may call ourselves by different names, we may profess different religions, we may belong to different ethnicity, different race, but at the end of the day, all the atoms in every one of us is identical to the atoms in others. We are same, just that we look different. We pay more attention to this minute difference than to the similarity between us. And because we fragment ourselves and think inwards and petty-minded, we have all these economic inequities. And so, those who think that the rich can afford to get richer at the expense of the poor have got a warning. Next slide, please. This warning comes from a man named Alan Greenspan. He was the former head of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve in America is the Reserve Bank of America. Its chairman now is Ben Bernanke, but before him was Alan Greenspan. This Alan Greenspan is a hard-nosed conservative Republican. Very strong views. But what does he say? He says you cannot have an island of prosperity in an ocean of misery. That's what he says. Even he could recognize that. And that is what the message that I am trying to tell. I would like to quote a little bit of Mahatma Gandhi before I close. We all think we make the laws and we are not obedient, answerable to any other law. But Gandhiji says there is an unalterable law governing everything and every being that exists or lives. It is not a blind law, for no blind law can govern the conduct of living beings. And thanks to the marvelous researches of Sir J.C. Bose, it can now be proved that even matter is life. That law then which governs all life is God. Law and the lawgiver are one. I may not deny the law or the lawgiver because I know so little about it or him. Just as my denial or ignorance of an earthly power will not avail me of anything, even so my denial of God and His law will not liberate me from its operation. I may say there is no God, but the God's law will control my life. Whereas humble and mute acceptance of divine authority makes life's journey easier, even as the acceptance of earthly rule makes life under it easier. So, I would like to summarize all this. It's something like a puzzle. And that puzzle is what I hope you will remember, because you might have slept through most of the talk, or you might have been looking at your watch, when is this torture going to end? But maybe you will take away some lesson, and that lesson is in the next slide. First acquire BMW, then acquire BMW. Now, BMW is the car. By the way, I don't know how many of you know what BMW stands for. It stands for the Bavarian Motor Works. It simply says the car made in that factory is called Bavarian Motor Works. But why should you acquire BMW before BMW? And what is BMW? BMW is basic moral values. In other words, unless you become a moral person, you will not know how to handle BMW and money, in short. Money, authority, all these are like intoxicants. But when you understand that money is something divine, that is why we attach a goddess to money, then you will respect money. If you respect knowledge, that is why you attach a goddess to knowledge, Saraswati, then you will respect knowledge. You will not use knowledge for doing a business, because knowledge is Saraswati. You will not use money to gamble and make more money by shortcuts, because you know money is Lakshmi. Baba often told rich people You all hoard money. It has no meaning. Supposing you take cow dung and pile it up in a corner, it will stink. But you take that same cow dung and spread it over a field, it becomes manure. You get so much more. Same way, spread your money throughout society through charitable works, works of compassion, and there will be prosperity and growth of love. In short, you remember I showed two ellipses, a red ellipse and a green ellipse. The red ellipse is where knowledge is combined with selfishness. That's a zero-sum game. Someone wins and someone loses. The green ellipse where knowledge is combined with compassion is a win-win game because the rules are changed. Everybody is happy. Everybody wins. I will stop here because I think people want to